Hi, everyone. This is Jackie Cooper with the GBA Spotlight Talk Show, and I want to thank everyone for hopping on, liking, subscribing, and remember to definitely follow us because there is a lot more conversations in the queue, and we want you to always know more about what GBA is doing, the Government Blockchain Association, as well as all of its members from around the world, because the growth has been phenomenal. We are in so many countries right now, and we want to support each and every one of you. Today, this is part of a continuing series all about the GBA history. And so I've interviewed Gerard, and that is, if you haven't listened, definitely hop over to that conversation because it really goes way back to the beginning of how he found blockchain, how he learned about Bitcoin, and why he decided that the Government Blockchain Association was so important to create. So today I have Jordan, and he is part of the family of GBA for sure in so many ways. And he's going to be sharing with us his perspective of the history of the GBA and where it's going and where it's been. Jordan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so let's actually start a little bit about your background. You're doing a lot of technical things for the GBA, but are you into the development side? Are you into the production side? For those that might not know and haven't been to some of the events, why don't you share a little bit more about your background and then we'll kind of backtrack.
Sure. So before I got into GBA, I was a musician and an artist, and I dabbled in web development for the purposes of getting my art or music or projects out there. But I wasn't doing system admin stuff, and I didn't go to school for it. I went to school for music and for painting.
Yeah, no, that's phenomenal. So, with your creative art side, are you seeing some of the applications now for musicians with protecting their intellectual property rights, with things being on chain and everything? Have you been following that?
For a long time, yeah.
Yeah.
I think I think adoption is going to be a big hurdle, and it's happening, bit by bit every year, and there's a lot of potential, but I think it's going to take something like the Spotify's or the Netflix's, like the content curators and distributors are going to need to want to adopt some system. Otherwise, this piecemeal stuff is really hard to get mainstream.
Yeah. So, before we actually go back over to the GBA side, have you found that, or have you been following how royalties are being paid to artists through the blockchain and smart contracts and things like that?
I've seen a lot of different applications,
Mhm.
and they're really cool. Like, it's really cool stuff. But I still see an adoption hurdle. We're not over it yet. But like, it is awesome that there's finally a way to have fair, verifiable repayment to the original artists of whatever they do. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, and I know that that sort of kind of goes back to the idea of the government blockchain. I mean, association in terms of, and it says government, but really it's for entrepreneurs, it's for individuals, anyone within the blockchain community. And the blockchain community is very large. It incorporates AI, incorporates crypto, incorporates Internet of Things. So um, when you were when Gerard was talking about creating the GBA, what was your initial thought?
So w- when we started this thing, it wasn't going to be an association. It was us just starting a meetup and writing classes to explain what blockchain was to people. And even though there's all of these financial applications, we were like, there are all these other applications. And so we started putting together classes and doing meetups where we would, yeah, classes, little lectures. we started doing meetups where we would just talk about like, yeah, the money stuff is cool, but let's look at records. Let's look at, decentralized ownership. Let's look at voting. Let's look at everything that isn't money, because we didn't have any money, and we realized that we really couldn't compete in that field. But there was all of these other untapped fields that were not being talked about, that nobody cared about. Um, so so in the early days, we were just kind of doing that, and we were both kind of learning. And then pretty quickly, um, within the first year, Gerard came to me and was like, "Yeah, I'm thinking about doing this association," and we didn't really know exactly. Like back then, we knew maybe we wanted to do something about standards, but we hadn't imagined the BMM the way that it is today. So he starts talking to me about this, developing this global network, and how it could impact future projects and people resources. And I was listening to him talk about this, and I was like, "You're crazy. You're going to need some help, and I'm going to help you." And so because I had been doing music for the last 10 years before that, and so I had been on my own figuring out how to get people's attention online, how to, record things, how to produce things. So I heard what he was saying, and I was like, "You're a great people person, but I have pieces that you're missing, and I know what it's like to lead a team, and I know what I need in teammates. And it's really hard to come by, and you can't afford it. And you're crazy. I'm going to help you." Um, and so that's when GBA really started, and turned out, like, that's when we put up the first version of the website, and we started taking membership. We started traveling around. This one summer we went all around the country, just doing these meetups, teaching classes, telling people about GBA, going to other conferences. And we didn't know. I mean, at this point, we thought about like making a token, and we thought about like doing a like government focused education, and we did a lot of that. We didn't ever make a token. I'm very happy that we never did that. But yeah, in the early days, I realized that he was ambitious, and Rome wasn't built in a day, and no man is an island, and he was going to need some help, and I was going to help him.
So for those that might be new to the GBA, the BMM is a blockchain maturity model. And that is definitely something that's needed in our community, because there are all different levels of blockchain businesses and entrepreneurs, but it's like everything else. How mature are they? Where are they in their process, in their startup, and in their application? And so the BMM actually is a way that your company can actually become certified on different levels. So that way people know where you are, and you know where you are, and you know where you need to go in order to be even more successful. So, in terms of your role within the GBA right now, what is it?
Right now, I've actually been stepping back the last couple of months. So I'm less involved today, than I was maybe a year ago. A year ago, I was the CTO. I've basically been in every technology role. I mean, I started writing classes, and then I started building the website, and then I started doing user tech support, and then I started the YouTube channel, and I went the BMM classes. Gerard and I developed. We took like 6 months to develop that first video asynchronous BMM class. And so right now I'm kind of just I'm kind of just keeping the website afloat, managing the YouTube channel. So I'm not very active at the moment. I'm working on another job at the moment.
No, that's fine. So, from your remembering the history of the GBA, what story kind of sticks out for you in terms of talking about both the members that are within it, as well as Gerard, as well as Kathy, and all the others who are contributing towards its success?
Well, there are so many people contributing. It
Yeah,
is
that's
it
true.
is outstanding, the quality and the caliber of people that Gerard has been able to attract over the years. Um, and some of them have been around. I mean, it's a small group, but there's maybe like 10 people who have been around almost since the beginning, who are still showing up on phone calls and contributing to new BMM supplements. I think when I think about like what stories stick out for GBA, so one is that we did an event at the Capitol before it was popular, and the other is so we in 2020, before things kind of got crazy, we decided we were going to do what we were going to call Government Blockchain Week, and it was going to be a week of events throughout DC at multiple venues, all about blockchain. And different days and different locations would be different subjects, whether it was IP or records management or whatever. We planned out a very ambitious week-long blockchain festival in DC, basically. And then March comes around and everything starts getting crazy, and we had all these contracts. We had all these contracts with venues, and some of them we got to we were like, look, after God, this is this is a little nuts. We can't do this event. But one of those contracts we had to see through, and so the following year, or maybe it took 2 years later, we kept moving the dates around. But basically, in 2022, we did an event that was a result of one of these extra contracts that we had to fulfill. And it was called Blockchain and Sustainable Economic Growth. And we were struggling to afford that one, but we had signed the contract and we had committed, and we eventually ended up getting the sponsorship money to make that event work. I think the day that it started. But it was a massively successful event. We had a huge turnout. It was just post-COVID, so a lot of people were hungry to see each other in person again. We did a blockchain vote we had an art gallery there. It was all NFTs, and people could vote using one of our members. I don't remember if it was Devotes or Devote or Votes. And but we did a blockchain vote on the best art in the gallery, and then we also launched the BMM, or we published the BMM at that conference. And it was this mix of like all of this accomplishment with we just barely got through that by the skin of our teeth. And it was a great couple of days, and it was so stressful, and I'm sure I blacked out at some point just thinking that like we were going to fold the company. And things have been really good since then. Things have been really good since then.
So I know that with every organization, there's definitely, it's like a step ladder. You start, you struggle, you create, you grow. You get the word out. What do you think is I guess from an achievement perspective? I know the GBA is definitely tenacious and is doing great things, but what memory do you have? You just shared one, but what memory do you have as to maybe an achievement that is making a huge impact, that you see is going to kind of be a ripple effect?
I think that the BMM is the biggest achievement that GBA has achieved. It took Gerard and the team, and a lot of people were involved in the development of that standard. It took them about 3 years of meeting every day, or not every day, every week for 3 hours on Saturday mornings, going through these proposals and really ironing them out and thinking about them and second guessing them. And it was a long, grueling process that was so important. Blockchain needs standards, because and of course this, but just for anybody who's listening who doesn't know it, there's a lot of there's a lot of unverified promises out there, and we as a community either need to learn a lot so that everybody individually can do their own research, which I love to say, but people don't have the time or expertise or whatever, or we needed a standardized way of communicating. Hey, this is a good product. Hey, this is a good idea. Hey, this is trustworthy, right? It was so desperately needed. And look, there's going to be more frauds. There's going to be more scams. There's going to be more poorly thought out projects that are developed by a team who doesn't know what they're doing and then deployed way too early. It's going to keep happening, but at least now there is a metric for judging those things. And um, it's so important. It's so important, and no one else has something like this, at least not as comprehensively. I know that there are some internal document. I'm sure Coinbase has a way of assessing blockchain projects, right? I'm sure JP Morgan has a method of assessing blockchain projects, but those things aren't public. And from what I believe, we have the most, GBA's BMM is the most robust test that you could put a blockchain solution through.
I want to make a point here, because for those that might not really understand blockchain analytics and what's going on here, Coinbase is a cryptocurrency company. They're not a blockchain technology company. They are a blockchain technology company from the perspective that all cryptocurrency is built on a blockchain. However, when you are looking at blockchain analytics from a cryptocurrency perspective, there are many tools out there that are looking at the type of wallet that you have, or the token, and if it has been involved in good or bad actions. And, so that's different than looking at the infrastructure of technology that's being used in a business sense. So there's a few different levels going on here. You do have the cryptocurrency side, but you also have the technology that might be used for supply chain, like with a FedEx, or, there's a lot of major companies that are using the blockchain to store their information, and also to kind of integrate that with their customers and things like that. So the BMM allows for businesses, whether you have a token or not, for cryptocurrency or just internal rewards or just for information, to kind of look at everything and figure out, okay, where are you in the process? And I think you're right. There are sometimes, like traditional startups, businesses get deployed too soon. The difference in the blockchain community is that, well, maybe not, but because we're online, you can deploy faster, and you could have a really pretty website, and people aren't able to kind of distinguish what's the liquidity behind that website, or how will the implementation of everything long term last. So I think that that's the difference when you have a traditional business and you're, even if it's hybrid, but you have a physical presence, you're going to be, customers can walk in, they can see things. So there's a big difference. What other areas do you see the GBA going into now? What have you heard from all the different working groups that exist? I know that we're expanding around the world right now, but what other things should people be aware of as they are looking at becoming a member or becoming involved with the GBA?
So there's a couple of things. So one thing that we've always tried to put energy into is educating government, and that's less important now than it was 10 years ago, but it's still very important. A lot of people still don't understand what this stuff is, what it can do, and so that's always going to be something that we're going to put energy into. We want to get education in front of people who make decisions, so that they're making informed decisions. Another thing is, so one of the things that makes it, I'm not trying to do like an ad spot, but one of the things that makes the BMM valuable is that it's designed to be both broad and narrow, right? And so, like, things that have a very broad application can be used by more people, but things that have a very narrow application can be used at a deeper level, right? And so what what a lot of the working groups are doing right now is developing industry specific supplements for their industry. And so like if yeah, so like if you're working on a blockchain voting application, you've got to do the BMM levels, but then you also have to do the voting supplement. And so I don't know what the exact number of supplements are right now, but all of our working groups that have people in it actively at this moment are pushing towards developing supplements for the BMM in their industry, and that just gives us more specific ways to evaluate different types of technologies. Um, and then yeah, there is some expansion going on. We're looking at partners. I'm less involved in those conversations. Um, um, and we're working on education, not just for governments, although that's probably the most important one. But we develop as much education as we can. Whenever we learn something new that doesn't quite make sense intuitively, we start wondering, how do we teach this? How do we train this? How do we expose this that's helpful to people?
So let's not forget about Kathy, and her contribution. I know that she might not want to be fully interviewed from this perspective, but why don't you share some stories about, because I know she's been very strong, in this whole process behind the scenes and in front of the scenes. What story would you like to share about her and how she's contributed?
Well, so Government Blockchain Week was she was managing the organization of that, even as things were falling apart. Um, and so she's planned and managed all of our events, which are no small feat.
Not at all.
We take about 6 months to plan each one of our events, and we for the last couple of years sometimes we do 3. Normally it's around 2. But that, I mean, like that's a full-time commitment. And so Gerard and Kathy are wonderful people persons. I am not, and so they one of Kathy does a lot of our government relations, specifically with the international community. And she's the reason that we get people from different embassies and different nations to show up at these events, which brings value not only to us but also to them. I mean, we're I don't I've got a lot of stories about Kathy. Not a lot of them necessarily relate to GBA, because we kind of work in different silos. Where she's very focused on the events. She's very focused on maintaining relationships with international governments, and I'm very much, when I'm working, I'm in my computer. I'm in like the basement, right? I'm working on something and kind of shutting out the world. So we don't work together a lot, but Gerard and Kathy and I have we've been hammering away at this thing for close to a decade at this point,
Yeah.
and yeah, a lot of it blurs together sometimes.
It does. It definitely does. I know that I believe, now, depending upon when someone listens to this, it might be past or it might be coming up. But I believe that this fall, we're looking at having another GBA event. Is that true?
That is true. The dates and location are not 100% locked down, but we're very close to making those announcements. It's going to be in DC. I don't know the dates, but yeah, we're doing another Future of Money Governance in the Law, and we're in the planning. We're deep in the planning phases of that right now.
Yeah, no, I'm very excited about that. I know that as our chat will be uploaded to the YouTube, people will be listening to this, throughout the years. So, but what I would like to share with whoever's listening is always visit the website, because any of the events uh, the upcoming events will always be posted there. And then for sure, become a member of the GBA and reach out. And if you have any questions about the BMM and or any of the other projects that we're working on, any last minute thoughts that you have for those that are listening?
I'm just I'm grateful for all of the support that people have poured into GBA over the years. We really we're really trying to make this a safe business environment for individuals and governments and organizations. We couldn't have done it alone. Everybody who's become a member, everybody who's come to a conference, everybody who's watched a video or done the training or talked about us in some way or gone through the BMM. There have been so many contributors, and I'm looking forward to what comes next. And I'm so grateful for the team, and I'm really happy to be here. Thank you so much, Jackie.
Yeah, and you talk about the network. I do want to mention that on the GBA website there is a directory that's launched, and what I like about the directory is that it also indicates who's gone through the BMM process. So you can actually see companies that are listing themselves, so you know who they are, both who have participated and maybe not yet participated. But that is a great resource. I know that the Blockchain Legal Institute that I started a few years ago is a library of resources, but I think that what the GBA is creating is really a great reference for people to go to see the variety of blockchain projects that are out there, and then also the ones that have actually gone through the BMM. So that way you can see the certification, you can see the levels, and that way, if you, again, I encourage anyone who's listening, if you're an entrepreneur in the blockchain space, reach out to get more information on how you can participate in the BMM, because I think that it is important for all of us to participate in these standards. So, Jordan, thank you so much for being on today. I know you and I are going to be having many more conversations over the course of our working within the GBA. And everyone who's listening, thank you so much. Definitely like and subscribe and share this with a friend who's in the Web3 community, because they might not know. And because we're decentralized, the only way we know about something that's happening is if you pass it on. So definitely pass on the conversation about what GBA is doing, so that way more individuals around the world can participate. Everyone, thank you.